Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990's Represent. We're still in our sixth cycle of 1995, taking a look at a movie. In this episode, we're taking a look at The Net, starring Sandra Bullock. I remember seeing this when it first came out. I remember kind of liking it. Watched it again on VHS, in 1996, I think. It's been a while since I've seen this. I think maybe last time I streamed this or watched it was maybe 2010 or something. But yeah, saw it in theaters, rented it, and then saw it once more. And I actually will say I actually had a lot of fun with this most recent rewatch. It wasn't nearly as bad as I remember it being. It gets kind of a lot of the stuff about the internet completely incorrect. It's very far-fetched, but also it's kind of oddly prophetic in a way where going into things about oversharing on the internet because they're able to lure her into a false sense of security because the guy knows her favorite movie and stuff like that. So don't think it was intentionally prophetic, but it ended up kind of being that in years and years later. Obviously completely unintentional, and also this movie is an extreme kind of case of that. But I have some notes about the movie. We're going to get to those, and then we'll get to our plot and all that as well. Just bring up the notes here. Alright, so here we have The Net, first released July 28th, 1995. I saw this, like I said, basically, I think I saw it in August of that year. It was shortly after it came out. And this is before I had ever used the internet. I kind of had an idea of what the internet was, because I remember in 1994 calling it was a baseball card thing, and it was basically an online card trading thing. And I remember calling people to ask about it, and they're like, "Oh, you need a modem to do this because it's online." So I didn't really have the internet at the time, and I don't think I actually first used the internet until months later, toward the end of 1995, and then by the time we got a modem, a 28.8K modem, in January of 1996. Then we got AOL, and then moved. I've been online basically ever since then. But didn't really use the internet then. Kind of knew some stuff about CompuServe and Prodigy, or AOL as well. Because if you ever got any of those computer magazines, they would always have advertisements for them. Sometimes included a diskette or a floppy disk or a CD to get a bunch of free hours on those. But AOL was the first one that I ended up using. The movie is, like I said earlier, incredibly far-fetched. What they're able to do with computers and the internet in this movie is completely not how the internet or any of that kind of stuff works. This is at a time period with movies like Hackers and things like that, where it was kind of nobody really knew what the internet could do or what it was actually capable of doing. So in this one, basically, it takes identity theft to the nth degree. They change her name, they add a bunch of bogus police charges on her. Basically, when the police do a check for her in the movie, it has a bunch of charges that are just put on there by the kind of villain. Does a bunch of other weird kind of stuff where it's also just super far-fetched that nobody knows who she is. Even though, I guess it's also kind of a cautionary tale of, don't just, be on the computer all day kind of thing. Don't be, terminally online. Because, later in the movie, she comes back from this vacation where everything kind of goes sideways, and her house is now for sale. And the neighbor's like, "Oh, I don't know who this person is," even though you would have think she would have seen her neighbor, or her neighbor would have seen her at least a few times. Nobody from her office can really verify her identity. So I guess nobody knows what she looks like. She's never had to go into the office ever for a meeting of some kind. So that kind of feels somewhat pretty contrived. Let me see here. Budget for this movie was $22 million. It ended up grossing $110 million worldwide. So that was pretty successful. And some stuff about this I didn't know is there was a whole TV series based on this. I think that ran from one season. I think it was on USA from 1990, basically 1998 to 1999. They also made a sequel or similar movie in 2005, which I didn't know about. Haven't seen the TV show, and I also haven't seen the sequel. A lot of stuff that happens on the computers in this movie is referred to as, quote, like, people will say, like, let's see, computers are magic, like the stuff that they can do. Like, I remember, like, her like ordering a pizza online in 1995. Don't know. You can probably obviously do that now through like apps and things, but I don't know if that was a thing you could do back then. The fact that kind of like the back door to all this like hacker stuff is just kind of in plain sight because it's a pi symbol on a website that you just like click on and click like a certain like keystroke to get like into like government databases. Feels like completely like not how a thing would actually work. That said, I did have a pretty good time rewatching this movie. Let's see here. Yeah, we got Computers Are Magic, super far-fetched. There's a couple articles I will link in the description that are kind of like talking about like how like the movie isn't great, but some of the stuff is kind of prophetic, like we mentioned. So those articles that I was using or did some research and read those articles will be in the description. Apparently, one of those articles was saying the websites that are featured in the movie are actually way better than the actual websites that existed at the time. Like, I remember, like, getting on, like, AOL and usually being kind of in that ecosystem for a while, and then you could go on the World Wide Web, and site design and, like, web design back in, like, 95, 96 was definitely not great. Like, GeoCities and Tripod are kind of testaments to kind of mid-90s like web design. So the websites in the movie actually look a lot better than you would actually have in real life. Some of the like the software, like there's like Mozart's Ghost that looks like a completely, I think it's supposed to be like a website, but kind of is like a information about like a band. So that looks like more futuristic. I don't want to say futuristic, but it looks definitely better than it would have looked if that was an actual thing from 1995. There's like again just an insane amount of plot holes. They filmed the climax of this movie, I think it was at the 1994 Macworld in San Francisco. So Cathedral Software is a company that she works for. So they basically filmed on the show floor. I think it was at the Moscone Center in San Francisco. Even the villain makes a comment about, she's like, oh, she ran into the Moscone Center. But, they set up a, what are they going to call it? Like a booth, like a fake booth for her company there. And then basically filmed kind of around the Macworld show floor there. I remember kind of like also like thinking like a lot of the kind of just like the stuff on their websites in the movie were really kind of like over like simplified, obviously for the sake of plot. Like she like runs like an IP address like thing at one point to find this guy where this the main villain is. Other plot holes. I'll touch on these more when I get to the plot. So one thing is you see when she's at the airport, you see somebody is like spying on her from like a balcony or something like that. She gets to Mexico and you see a kind of shady character off in the background like watching her as well. I would have actually preferred those scenes to be cut, like those little like they're not like long scenes, but when the actual villain's like betrayal actually happens, since we've seen this like basically like the guy on the beach is like a purse snatcher that gets hired by the villain to snatch her purse and then go through it, and then it's revealed that the guy she's like on a date with is the person that like hired that guy and stuff like that. So since we've seen that character before and that character shows up again, it's kind of like it's very easy to like I think his name is Jack. Jack's portrayal doesn't really like hit very well because it's like it's kind of foreshadowed a little bit too much, I think. Stuff like that. Stuff that like there would be any number of people would be able to identify her identity because like think she is Angela Bennett but goes by Ruth Marks once they change her name and stuff like that. You would think there would be people at her office that would know her, neighbors, just like anybody could identify her. Even like when she calls up like Dennis Miller's character, who is like a former like boyfriend of hers, he could vouch for her as well, be like, hey, this isn't Ruth Marks, this is Angela Bennett. But then, that's kind of defeats the purpose of the movie, I guess. But we're about to get into our plot. But I do want to say I did have a lot more fun on this rewatch than I thought I was going to have. So let's go ahead and get into the plot of this movie. So plot of this movie is Sandra Bullock plays Angela Bennett. Or Angela Bennett? I think it's Angela Bennett. Let me make sure I got the character right. Yeah, Angela Bennett. All right, cool. Just want to make sure the name is right. So she works as a computer, does debugs games and works for a company called Cathedral. Actually, before we get to that, the little kind of cold open is you have a politician walking out of the Capitol building or something on a cell phone, talking to his doctor, which obviously are supposed to be a doctor, about some bad news he's gotten. They drive to a park. The politician calls his son, is like, hey, for every hour you put into algebra, you get an hour with Nintendo and Sega. And then he talks to his wife, and then you see him pull a gun out, and he shoots himself. And that's the opening of the film. And then it cuts to Sandra Bullock's character, and she's essentially playing Wolfenstein. I don't think it's supposed to be Wolfenstein, but I remember even when that movie came out, I had already played Wolfenstein at that point, so it's kind of silly seeing her playing Wolfenstein, and then just because I kind of knew what it was. But there's a virus in this game that if you hit the escape key, it crashes your system. So she goes in there, debugs the virus, gets the virus, gets it out of the code, saves it on a floppy disk, because that's important for later in the movie, but saves the virus to a floppy disk, and then the game is fixed. It's good to go. She is then, the guy she's talking to at Cathedral is wanting to go out to dinner with her. She's like, no, I can't go out. I have standing arrangements where basically she just stays inside, orders pizza, and hangs out in chat rooms, basically. So she orders a pizza online, has a drink, is in a chat room. The chat room is weird because it's text to speech, but also the text is on the screen. I don't know what the choice of that. I think it was just so you could you could hear it instead of having to read it. But it just kind of came across as kind of sloppy to me because you have this digitized voice reading the stuff, and it's also on the screen. They're talking to her it's Cyber Bob, and I forget the other person in the chat room, but she's Angel. Obviously, must not be a very popular chat room if you can get easy names like Cyber Bob and Angel. But she's talking to them about kind of they're like, well, what do you want in a man? She's described. She's like, I want, is it Albert Schweitzer meets Captain America, doing this, doing that, a bunch of other stuff. She then gets a call from another person at Cathedral, or next day she gets a FedEx disc in the mail. And she signs for it, puts it in this program called Mozart's Ghost. It feels like it's a multimedia informational thing a band would put out. So it has information about the band members. It has way to buy tickets, the music, stuff like that. She gets a call from her coworker at Cathedral. I think his name is Dale. And he calls her and is like, hey, I saw you sign for that package. Check this thing out. He's like, go into ticket information, or what is it, concert information, something like that. And it brings her to a really weird website. He's like, hey, that's not exactly Ticketmaster now, is it? So he's like, see that thing on the bottom symbol? It's the pi symbol. He's like, click on that and then hit control or some keystroke. And it flashes in front of her, and it brings her to a bunch of weird government databases that she should have no access to. And he's like, yeah, last night when I did it, it brought me to the Amtrak Central mainframe. And it turns out there's this software called Gatekeeper that a lot of these agencies are starting to use, and basically it's just a huge backdoor to kind of exploit these companies. So that's kind of the main plot of the movie. But he's like, hey, I need to come down and talk to you. She's like, no, I can't talk to you. I can't have you come down because I'm getting ready to go on vacation tomorrow. And he's like, well, I'll come in tonight, and I'll fly in first thing in the morning. We'll talk about this hacking stuff or whatever it was, and then you go on your vacation. So she's like, okay, whatever. You see he's flying his plane, he's talking to air traffic control, and he's like, hey, I'm requesting permission to land, am I good to land? They're like, no, you did a failed approach. And he's like, well, you should see me on your instruments. And then you see him his plane basically crashes and he dies. So obviously they hacked his plane to, probably hacked his instruments to display incorrect information about where he was, and so he crashes into like a looks like a power plant of some kind. So she's getting ready to pack, and this guy hasn't shown up. So Cathedral, I think she either calls Cathedral, or they call her, and the guy's like, hey, like we got to get Dale's replacement. And she's like, what? He's like, oh, I didn't. He's like, you didn't know? Yeah, Dale's plane crashed last night. And he's like, well, try to have a good trip. It's like, hey, your coworker's dead, but like, go have fun on your trip. So goes to the airport. The airport stuff is hacked as well. So like a lot of flights are canceled or delayed. Eventually those get cleared up, and she goes on her trip. She's on the beach, and you see her pull her laptop out of her like a bag, and you see a waiter walk by, and then the villain shows up named Jack. I think it's like Jack Devlin, and he's like, I'll take a Gibson, which is like it's a martini with an onion instead of an olive. And then she's like, I'll have one of those too. And they start hanging out, kind of talking about how pathetic they are, because they're like, hey, we're on this awesome beach, and the only thing we can think of is where can we plug in our modems. But they go up to the bar at the beach bar, and they're talking about Breakfast at Tiffany's, which happens to be her favorite movie. So obviously they are, I want to say like going on social media because that wouldn't have existed yet, but like probably like listening to conversation on chat rooms where she's probably talking about this movie. So he goes into this whole conversation about the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. They decide to go out for dinner. They have dinner, and then on the beach, on the walk back to, I think he's got a boat, her purse is stolen by the guy I mentioned earlier in the video. So purse gets stolen, and Jack goes off after him. He catches up to him, and the guy's got the disc, the Mozart's Ghost disc, or whatever it was. That is probably evidence about the gatekeeper stuff being hacked. Because basically Jack's job is to just tie up loose ends and get rid of Sandra Bullock's character. So the guy's like, all right, the purse snatcher's like, all right, pay me. Jack shoots him. He cuts his hand and throws the purse away. And he's like, oh, I couldn't catch the guy. And they go to his boat. He goes down to the deck below, takes the disc out. Basically, he's got her wallet. I think he's got her wallet. I don't know if she had it or not, because if she doesn't grab it on her way back out. So they end up, sleeping together. And this is where Jack is like just really incompetent. He could have just walked above the deck and shot her and been done of it. But they sleep together. They go. He goes down into like the galley to get some wine or some drinks, and she comes up and she's cold. So now she's got his jacket on, and there's a gun in the jacket. He's like, "Hey, what's this?" He's like, "Oh, that's for shark hunting or shark fishing or something." And she's like, "With a silencer." And he's like, "Who are you?" And he like pulls the gun from her, and he's like, "I'll tell you who I am. I'm Captain America meets Albert Schweitzer," like the chat conversation she had earlier in the film. And then he's about to shoot her. He's like, "I'm about to make the world safe for democracy." Pulls the trigger, click, and the clip is taken out. And they have a struggle, and the clip falls into the water. She knocks him out with a wine bottle. Goes into the under the ship, the boat, and gets her stuff back, and then escapes on a inflatable raft, which eventually crashes. So she wakes up in a hospital like days later, and the disc that she had is all melted and got melted by the sun. But then she goes back to the hotel to check out, and they're like, "Oh, that person's already checked out." And now people are like, "Oh, are you Ruth Marks?" Because she's like, "No, I'm Angela Bennett," but she needs a passport to get back into the country. So like she signs Ruth Marks in her name, gets the temporary passport, and comes back to the States. I don't remember if she was at the airport or her car was gone or what the deal with that was. But she goes to her house. Her house is now on the market. Her neighbor doesn't know who she is. Jack is spying on her again. And then the police get called to the house. So Jack goes into the police database and adds a bunch of charges to her profile, basically. And the police start going after her. She snags the realtor's cell phone on the way out. And she ends up calling her friend Alan Champion. This is played by Dennis Miller, who is a former boyfriend of hers. So she's basically on the run at this point, and she gets set up in a hotel. Dennis Miller gets her set up in a hotel. Also, conveniently in the movie, her mom has Alzheimer's, so she doesn't know who Angela is. So that's kind of like another like contrived like little plot point there. But yeah, Dennis Miller's character is like, hey, I got a friend in the FBI that can help you out with this. And what he does is he pulls her mom out of the um, assisted living home that she's in and puts her in a different place, like secretly, so Jack can't go after her. So Dennis Miller does all that, and she gets Dennis Miller to help her like set up like a computer in the hotel, and she gets in a chat room again with Cyber Bob. It's also very contrived that Cyber Bob also happens to live in the same city that she does. So she's talking about somebody. She's like, "Hey, I've never seen this like pi symbol on a website." And he's like, "Hey, those are the Praetorians, they're notorious hackers. Like, don't mess with them." And she ends up, and Jack is like listening into this. So she's like, "Hey, meet me on the Santa Monica Pier. We're gonna like talk about this. This is Angela and Cyber Bob." So Jack goes to Bob's house, presumably kills him, and then intercepts Annie at the what's it called, the Santa Monica Pier. While this is happening, Dr. Champion is also like in the hospital. Another contrived thing is he's in the hospital for one thing, and it's obviously his medical records have been hacked. So they give him a medicine that he has a huge allergic reaction to, and he eventually dies. But he's in there. He's fine at first. She's talking to him. This is before she goes to meet up with Cyber Bob, but goes there. And they're like, "Oh yeah, your friend's gonna be fine. He's gonna be just great. Like he'll be in like probably like released tomorrow or something like that." That's what the nurse at the desk says. So she goes to the pier. Obviously, Cyber Bob doesn't show up, but Jack does. There's another like a chase ensues where she's chasing him down. He escapes, or Angela escapes again, and she goes back to the hospital. And now Dr. Champion is basically has died from, I think. These were saying he was diabetic when he really wasn't. I don't remember what it was, but they changed his IV bag and gave him something that gives him this allergic reaction. So the same nurse that told her, mere hours ago, maybe even not that long. I don't know how long in the movie is supposed to be, like how much time has passed between her leaving the hospital and her going back. But the nurse is like, "Oh yeah, he was in here for this other thing," and she's like, "No, he wasn't. He was in here for this thing." So it's just weird that like the nurse would like look at the screen and see that he was in for whatever it was, and then a couple hours later be like, "Oh, like this looks weird. Like when I looked at the screen 2 hours ago, it was saying he was in here for that." So he died. His character dies. Dennis Miller's character is done for. Angela is then driving his BMW, and Dennis Miller's BMW gets pulled over by the police. There's a car chase. She ends up getting arrested, and then the person that bails her out of jail essentially is Dennis Miller's FBI friend. Or so we think. So they're driving. She's like, "Hey, like," he's like talking about like how he's like, "We need the disc. Do you have the disc? Can you make a copy of it?" Something about he mentions something about the disc being destroyed in Mexico, and light bulb goes off in her head. She's like, "Hey, I didn't tell anybody else that the disc was destroyed in Mexico except for Jack." So now she knows that this guy is probably obviously not who he says he is, and is working for the villains. So she causes the car to crash. And that character, the guy who was driving it, is killed as well. And now she's back on the run again. So after that, I believe she now has to kind of, the only way to really prove her innocence is to prove that she is not involved in any of this. So she ends up going to, I think, San Francisco to go to the cathedral headquarters. So she goes in there, sneaks in, sets off a fire alarm so she was able to get to a desk and use a computer, and is able to download a bunch of information from Angela's desk, which is now the actual Ruth Marx's desk. Downloads a bunch of information, runs an IP tracker, and finds out that all this stuff is from the guy who created the Cathedral software. Or not Cathedral software, the Gatekeeper software. So basically, it's Gatekeeper software gets installed on these systems. Basically, it installs a backdoor for hackers to do kind of whatever they want with it. Like I said, so the Gatekeeper people are in charge of, they're the ones that hacked the airport stuff. They're the ones that hacked, they hacked the politician's, what are they called? Medical records to show that he had HIV when he didn't, which caused him to kill himself. They hacked, obviously, all of Angela Bennett's stuff. They hacked Dennis Miller's medical history, things like that. So basically the Praetorians and I think it's Greg Microsystems are in charge of it. So she gets all that information, gets it on a disk, and then goes, the fire alarm is stopped, and she sneaks back out. I think she's wearing like firefighter gear to get out of the thing. She goes to the Moscone Center to use a computer, and she basically types up an email saying like, "Hey, like my name is Angela Bennett. I have information about the actual like villains. I'm going to upload that to the FBI, or the Department of Justice, or whoever it was." The main villains, so Jack and the actual Ruth Marks, are there trying to find her, and they do. And while Angela was at Cathedral, she grabs that virus disc, that disc I mentioned earlier in the video. She grabs that virus disc, so she has two discs. She has a disc of all the information on it that she needs to clear her name and expose the people at the at Greg Microsystems, as well as the virus from earlier in the movie. So she types up the email, sends all the information off to the Department of Justice or whoever, swaps the discs in the disk drive with the virus disc. Jack catches up to her, and he's like, "Hey, like, I know what you're doing. Like, it's all good. I can just erase everything you did by escaping the system, and then basically everything you did will be null and void. Nothing will happen." Hits escape. Virus disc gets triggered. It starts eating through all of the like the system, and then she escapes. There is a chase between Jack, Ruth, and Angela, where they're like, kind of like up at the roof of the building. The older villain, Ruth Marks, I think Jack mistakes her for Angela Bennett. He ends up shooting her, and then she comes around the corner with Sandra Bullock's character with a fire extinguisher, hits him in the head with it, and he falls to his death essentially. After that, it kind of wraps up nicely, where it was exposed that Greg Microsystems was in charge of everything and all that, and everything is apparently back to normal. I don't really know how it'll go back to normal that quick, but basically it all kind of happy ending for everything. That's basically the plot of the movie. A lot of it, like I said earlier, very contrived, very unrealistic, but kind of oddly prophetic in a way because of the like maybe a cautionary tale of being chronically online, or just oversharing online and things like that. But overall, this most recent rewatch, I had a lot of fun with it. Actually, it's cheesy. It's not a great movie. This came out kind of in the middle of Sandra Bullock's meteoric rise to fame. So she did Demolition Man, Speed, this. I think While You Were Sleeping came out the same year. And then, like a whole bunch of other. Basically, this came out kind of right when she was starting to just kind of blow up. And it's a fun movie, so I enjoyed it. Like I said, not a great movie, but if you go in kind of with your, like, it's obviously like a leave your brain at the door kind of thing, because you're just going to be like, hey, like, computers don't work like that, or this character should have, like, known this person, that kind of thing. If you overanalyze it, it'll be really, really bad, but it's still not great. But I had fun with it. So that's going to do it for this video. We'll be back in a few days with a video game from 1995. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.